and share it with researchers in order for them to be able to share, preserve, cite, explore, analyze data. The DataVerse project is a collaboration between the Institute for Quantitative Social Science here at IQSS, the Harvard University Library, and the Harvard University Information Technology, or what we call Hewitt. It's also a collaboration with the Open Data Assistance Program at Harvard, which is a collaboration with the Harvard Library and the Office for Scholarly Communication and IQSS. The Library Technology Services at Hewitt provides hosting and backup support of the data on the DataVerse. So we offer a number of different workflows for the DataVerse. Researchers get full control of their data. You receive visibility, academic credit, and increased citation counts. You can set up a personal DataVerse where you can add all of your data sets for a project, and you can also embed widgets of your DataVerse as it's found on Harvard DataVerse into your personal site. Journals, we offer seamless submission of data, review, and publication of data associated with published articles. We establish and allow an unbreakable link, easy ID DOI, between articles in the journal and the associated data that are deposited. And of course, the journal editors can choose to create a DataVerse where they review all of the submissions that come into the space that they've created for their authors, or they can just allow their authors to deposit directly into the Harvard installation. Now, given that this is a software that can be installed at any institution or any organization, the organization itself would determine who deposits data into their installation. Developers take part in DataVerse by joining our community groups where we discuss better features or assist with installation questions, and they are able to contribute directly to our GitHub where we have our source code and discuss tools, integrate research analysis, visualization and exploration tools, and other archival systems that could possibly work with DataVerse. And they are able to contribute, and we have a page where they can go in and become part of the community. Institutions can establish a research data management solution for their community, as I mentioned. They can federate with a growing list of repositories worldwide, and this increases their discoverability of their data and their community, and they can also participate in helping to set standards for data sharing, preserving, citing, exploring, and analyzing research data. So all of these different options are available to our community. You can install, you can use the Harvard repository, which is for worldwide use. You can come in as a journal and set up a workflow, or you can contribute to developing code. Here's just a map of some of our installations worldwide. We have a big project that is taking place with Netherlands with the DANS installation. We have a few installations out in Asia, Peking University, Fudan University, as well as DataSpace, University of Alberta in Canada, and we have a couple of installations in Brazil, all of who are working with us to improve code, improve access to the different data found at these installations, and of course just meet and create a community where people can contribute and learn about data depositing and data sharing. So some of the features offered by DataVerse. Data citation. It's automatically generated. So what we've done is we've created a standardized data citation for data sets. One did not exist before. Basically what you would have is a journal article. You'd have a title of an article. But you didn't have a citation that said, you know, here's the author, here's the title, here's the depository where the data are found, here's the version of the data that's available, here's the year that the data was deposited or were deposited in the DataVerse. So we've created a standard citation that is used for all of the data sets that are deposited into a DataVerse. We have multiple publishing workflows, which we've described. So you get a data set in a draft format that you can work on with your research group or with your collaborators. For a journal, that data set that's developed can be submitted for review. When an article in a journal or a data set in a journal is submitted for review, the editors of that journal will go in, review the data set, and make sure that it meets the standards of curation and deposit that they have required from their authors. And then they can send that data set back to the author if it needs additional information, or the editor will then publish the data set for access. We provide a terms of use and a guest book. By default, CC0 is the waiver that we have available. You can also set custom terms of use, and you can download metrics. With CC0, it's important for authors to understand that you are giving users of your data permission to not only download the data openly from a DataVerse installation, but they can also take that data and publish it in any other site that they would like. So you're basically giving open use of the data outside of DataVerse. So it's very important to understand what that waiver means. We offer account and data notifications. So if you have restricted data, you will be notified when someone requests access to your data. You can grant roles and permissions to files in your data set, to your data set, and to your DataVerse, and you get notified every time these roles are created and someone is granted access. And of course, when data is published, you will be notified, or the author will also be notified. So there are different data notification settings that's available to you. Faceted search means the metadata fields that you use in your template and you choose to be searchable on DataVerse are just that, they're searchable. So the more information you include about a data set, the more metadata fields you complete, and then the facets that you choose to display for your data set, the more likely your data set and your data file are to be found and used. We offer pull header metadata from astronomy fit files. We have APIs for interoperability. So we have search API and data deposit API at this point. We offer 3 levels of metadata: the description, citation, domain-specific or custom fields, and of course file metadata. There's access control support for predefined and custom roles. You can restrict files and the ability to request access to restricted files. So depending on if your data are open, it's available, and you can just include perhaps a guest book to collect information on your users. Otherwise, you can restrict the file to your immediate group. You can also restrict the file so that anyone in the world can request access to it, and you can collect additional information on who that user is and what they would like to do with your data. We offer customization of DataVerses, branding, metadata-based facets, sub-DataVerses. Oh. Should I continue?
I don't know where that's coming from.
If everyone could mute their microphones, please. I'm sorry.
Can you mute the group?
I don't think so.
What is that, graduation?
Let me see. Give me 1 second.
Elizabeth, you should be able to mute the whole group. There you go.
The conference has been muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. You could go ahead.
The conference has been unmuted.
You can have a parent DataVerse You can have children DataVerses. You can have grandchildren DataVerses, all as a way of organizing your data. Each of those DataVerses can be branded and customized. You can pick the facets for each of those different levels. You can pick all of the, you can add logos to each of those different levels of DataVerses. And of course, you'll have an organized collection of data. The other feature that we offer is reformat, summary, statistics, and analysis for tabular files. Now, this is a great feature if you have certain file types. For example, Stata files supported. We support versions 12 and 13 for Stata files to be converted into a tabular format that can basically be analyzed directly on DataVerse. The other files types that we support, excuse me, are Excel, RData, CSV, and SPSS files. And with those particular files, again, when you upload such files, the system goes into the file. It looks at the number of variables, the number of cases. It converts it to a tabular format, and you can use the Explore option directly on DataVerse to analyze the data or create subsets of the data instead of having to download those files onto your own laptop. And for those file formats that I mentioned, you can actually also download them in a number of different formats, including the original format, tab delimited file, and subsets of the data. The other tool that we offer is the mapping of geospatial files, which is an integration with the World Map Project, which is run by the Center for Geographic Analysis here at Harvard. So again, we talked about some of the features and the important features. So the standard citation, you get a title. DOI, which is your permanent identifier. One of the things we stress is that when you create a data set on DataVerse, any DataVerse, what you should be putting into your publication is that DOI, because that is a permanent link back to the data. You get also what we call a universal numerical fingerprint. That was created here. And that is a file-level DOI for the tabular files that I mentioned. So for any file that goes through an ingest process, you will get this universal numerical code, which then becomes part of the citation as well. So anytime you come back in and you change one of those files that has a UNF, it also generates a new UNF for the citation. This is to allow a user to note if a file has changed between versions of a data deposit. Versioning is also, of course, important, so we allow versioning. You can have major versions or you can have minor versions. Edits to metadata will give you a minor version of the data that's only seen in the background. If you change or add a data file, you get a major version change in your data set citation. And of course, repositories follow 11 Joint Declaration of Data Citation Principles. For file level support, we offer the MD5, we offer the UNF, we offer the tabular data feature, which I just talked about, the ingest and the ability to explore online. We allow you to download in multiple formats. We allow you to tag your data by whether it's a documentation, which wave of data collection that data file is coming from. We allow you to add descriptions. We offer zip file extractions. So if you have 1,000 files that you need to upload right away, you upload one zip file, the system extracts a zip file, and all of your files are processed. If it's a tabular file, it will process it, ingest it, and create the Explore feature. If it's a PDF, it will create an image file of the first page. You get a preview of the first page. If it's an image file, you also get a preview of that image. You're allowed to upload any type of file. DataVerse supports any file format, including audio and video. There's no limit to the number of files that you can upload. There is a limit on the file size. Per file, it's 2.5 gigabytes for the Harvard DataVerse, and DataVerse in general is at 2 gigabytes. Metadata support, of course, is offered. We are at DDI 2.5, and we offer additional template features for consistency across data curation. We offer metadata blocks, which Eleni will talk about later, for particular domains that the DDI 2.5 might not support. Again, we talked about terms, CC0. You are able to add additional terms. You are able to deposit your data in restricted format or open format. You're even able to have an application form, as the Murray Research Archive has under its terms of use. So that's a good page to go for an example of a Qualtrics application form that was embedded in order for people to have access to data. And, of course, we mentioned versioning. So you can create a DataVerse or a data set. It depends on your need. If you need a space, you create a DataVerse. If you're just depositing one data set, then you can deposit it right into a root data set. We offer themes and widgets. Again, you can upload your logo. Widgets is the ability to take your DataVerse and embed it directly into your personal website. Permissions feature is extensive. Again, you will have roles for your admin group that manages your DataVerse or your data set. You will also have roles for your users, whether they can download the files, whether they're just a member that can just view your unpublished information and download files, but they cannot edit. Groups is a great way to manage a large number of users or a large number of admins. You create one group where you basically take the account that's been created, add it to the group, so that instead of having a very long list of users, you have a group name and your users are added to that group name, and you can delete and add as needed. The guest book allows you to collect information on your users for an open DataVerse. So if you don't have restrictions on your data set, but you'd like to know who's looking at your data and what they're doing with your data, what you would do is create a guest book. Right before downloading the files, the user would be prompted to answer the questions that you've selected. Once they've answered those questions, they go directly into download. You, as the admin of your DataVerse or your data set, would get to go under permissions and the guest book page and actually download the information that's been collected. Templates we've already talked about, which is your ability to create a template so that you have consistent data curation across a project. And, of course, featured DataVerses. If you go to dataverse.harvard.edu, you will see that we have a number of featured projects at the very top of our page. We have the World Agroforestry DataVerse, we have the Murray Research Archive, we have the IFPRI, we have the PSI. You also have the ability with your, not just with your installation, but if you have a DataVerse on the Harvard installation, you have the ability to feature your projects in the same manner. For our next release, which is coming in this month in June, there's a GitHub tracking for 4.4, for DataVerse 4.4. We have added updates to the widget for your personal websites. We will be reinstalling support for remote authentication with Shibboleth. And we have some guest book feature bug fixes that we've added. At the end of June, we are going to be, again, supporting metadata harvesting and export metadata in standard formats, and we have a private URL for reviewing unpublished data set as part of a journal workflow. Current projects, which will be integrated into DataVerse in 2016, will be continuing our supporting of handles. We have been working on internationalization, file-level metadata, and file-level landing page and provenance metadata. In the fall of this year, we will continue our support for sensitive data and support for large-scale data. And finally, you can find our past releases information on the GitHub page as mentioned here. And then we have a page on version 4.3, which was released in March. And just to give you an idea, we talk about the DataSite API support, the ability to add custom text to the dataset publishing pop-up, the ability to log in using your email address, and ongoing bug fixes. And now I will hand this over to Eleni, who will be talking a lot more about metadata and a lot of the needs of the bioCADDIE community.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everyone. So before I get into the details about what metadata we're supporting for life sciences, I just wanted to briefly mention that we are working on being fair, that being the fair data publishing principles. And as Sonia had mentioned, we have already unique IDs for data sets using DOIs. We do provide rich metadata for these data sets, and all of them are indexed in DataSite, available to the world to be able to find. And we data usage licenses, such as Zero. And we're also regularly trying to work with different domain-specific communities to make sure that we're following standards for metadata and accessibility. So I just wanted to briefly mention that before I got into the metadata. So for life sciences metadata, I just wanted to briefly make a note that prior to version 4.0, we did not have this supported in DataVerse. And we had the assistance of the University of Oxford e-Research Center, the folks that are working on ISATAB, to come up with some of the features that you'll be seeing in DataVerse 4.0 and onward. And some of it has also been with the collaboration of groups at Harvard Medical School giving us advice about what would work to make their research discoverable and reusable. The metadata that we ended up picking, which I will show you a screenshot of, is closer to what scientific data is using, so we're trying to be as broad as possible. And we're various ontologies that you can find on bioportals such as OBI and the NCBI taxonomy for your organisms. And in the fall, we are planning to be able to export this ISATAB metadata so that it can be discoverable with places such as the NIH's Discovery Index. So here is a screenshot of our life sciences metadata block, which when you fill in a data set, if you do have, if this is the domain you're working in, we're able to allow you to set what the design type was for your study, the factor type, the organism, measurement types, and technologies, as well as your technology platforms. So, and the cell, which is a free text field at the moment, but we're working to make sure that that is vocabulary, so you wouldn't have to type it in yourself. So this is just one example. We're looking forward to working with the bioCADDIE community to make this even better for your researchers. And I also wanted to make a note that in the ISA Explorer, you can already see DataVerse in there because researchers are depositing data DataVerse, but also being available via the publication scientific data. So I just wanted to mention that. And I want to now switch over from metadata to talk to you about a project that we're working on with the Harvard Medical School, which is funded by the Helmsley Charitable Trust. And it's with the Structural Biology Data Grid. And so at the moment, DataVerse isn't able to support large-scale data. And so we're working with them to be able to provide the support so that researchers can upload crystallography data using RSync or Globus. And these are large-scale. So
this is a webinar for bioCADDIE.
I'm them as the coordinator, and this is a poster that was made available at.
Oh, you don't? Oh, that's because I forgot to.
Excuse me, can everyone mute their phone except the presenter? I see lots of background noise.
Thank you. So I encourage you to follow the link, which is on the posters on Figshare, and we will also be working with them to provide visualizations of these particular files, these image files that they're storing. So if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me, and I can answer any questions you have. And I also wanted to mention that within the life sciences, health sciences community, we're working with various journals that have this goal of making data available that is associated with their articles. So as you can see here, we have Data in Brief, we have scientific data sets in the Harvard DataVerse. We're also working with American Heart Association's publications and various journals from Elsevier, and researchers that are publishing in PLOS have been encouraged to deposit within the Harvard DataVerse, and we've seen a large uptake of that recently. And as well, Ubiquity Press's Open Health Data, which is more of a data papers kind of journal. And I wanted to show you an example of a data set in the Harvard DataVerse, which relates to the life sciences. And so as you can see, the data citation is prominently shown at the top of the data set along with a description and some keywords. And then you see underneath there's several tabs, so you can look at the files. And then if you want to find more detailed metadata, you can go there. The terms of use are listed there, as well as what Sonia had mentioned about versions. So you can be able to see exactly what had changed between versions. And for this data set, it was at version 1, so you wouldn't see anything. But if there were multiple versions, you could see what had specifically been changed. And here's another example of another data set, just to give you an idea of the different flavors that we have available. And you can notice, you can see the branding on the top of the page for each of these DataVerses within the Harvard DataVerse. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to make it clear that we are very dedicated to working with the bioCADDIE community. In fact, a few of us will be attending the bioCADDIE workshop at the end of June to learn more from you and how we can expand DataVerse's software to be able to support the needs of your researchers. So I just want to thank you on behalf of Sonia and myself for listening to our presentation, and welcome any questions or comments. So thank you.
And that's our presentation, so we're happy to take any questions. Should I hit stop meeting or anything?
You could start with you guys are going to do a live demo, right?
Well, you know what? This was kind of our demo, so I could do share and we could speak to the community, but we're ready to kind of go into the questions.
Okay. Well, if somebody has any questions, you guys can speak up now.
Would someone like us to go to the dataverse.harvard.edu page, our website, our Harvard installation, and do a quick walkthrough?
That would be great.
Great, we can do that. Okay. So I will be on in 1 second, because I can share the screen. There we go. Share.
Share desktop.
I know, I'm just trying to get back to my, where did my screen go? Where did my Firefox screen go? I think it's theirs. It's not Chrome, though. I know. I'm trying to get my Firefox was open, and I can't get back on it. Nope. No, this one. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So this is, and I'm going to log out just because I'm a super user on the Harvard installation, and you would be able to see published and unpublished information if I'm logged in. So this is the Harvard installation page. As you can see, we have our logo, the Harvard branding. We are in collaboration with Harvard Library, Harvard University, and IQSS. Can everyone see our screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So what I wanted to show you is that we have our featured DataVerses. This is what I talked about. When you create a DataVerse, if you create a DataVerse Harvard installation, if you create a DataVerse and any other 4.0 installation around the world, you are able to feature your particular collections within a DataVerse. So, for example, PSI, Population Services International, has been working with us for quite a while, and they have a number of projects based in different regions. And what we did for them is initially when they came into Harvard DataVerse, they just deposited all of their data sets under their parent DataVerse, which is Population Services International. Well, we went through and we split up their data sets into the different regions. We decided that, together with them, that they needed an Asian and East Europe DataVerse. They needed an East Africa region DataVerse. They needed a Latin American DataVerse. And they needed one to collect the data for the Southern Africa region as well as West and Central Africa. So as you can see, you can slide through the different regions. Overall, we are on the parent DataVerse, as you can see by the URL. So every time you create a DataVerse, you get a URL with an alias that directs to that parent DataVerse. As you add data, you are building your collection and you're building your facets. You will always have an option to see the DataVerses that you've created, the data sets that you've added, and also all of the files that belong in your DataVerse. We offer particular defaults that will show up: the category, the publication date, and the distribution date. Those things are going to show up as part of any DataVerse. So this group, instead of just coming into the Harvard installation and depositing one data set, they decided they needed their space. So they created their space, and in creating their space, they were able to add their logo, and they were able to create all of these additional DataVerses. If you'll notice, make it easy for users to find their data. They are taking advantage of the templates we provide and all of the metadata fields. So within each data set, they have gone in and tagged all of the data sets that belong to Benin and Kenya and Malawi and Uganda and Zimbabwe, plus more. They've also used a metadata block that we created for them. So we have HIV and STI data sets. We have the study type. We have the study design element. We have the donor, the health area, the intervention, population, product, services, and all their keywords. This is going to help me filter through 1,131 data sets to maybe just two that I want, three that I want. Invested in the health area data, and I click on the HIV facets, I get the two data sets I'm interested in. I might not be interested in anything else. But also, these facets tell me that when somebody comes to the Harvard installation and they search on our main site for any of these words that I see here, they're going to come upon my data set. So this is why it's important to include metadata and to choose your facets wisely. So I'm just going to go back for a second. When you first come on our page, you log in or you sign up for an account. Okay? Once you create an account, you have an option to add data. And of course, if you click add data without creating an account, it's going to tell you you need to sign up or you need to log in. So just to give you an indication, I'm going to log in briefly. When you actually create an account, and I'm going to scroll off the page just a little bit. When you actually create an account, you have the option to create a new DataVerse or create a new data set. Again, your DataVerse is your space. If you are a scholar and you have multiple publications that you want to, multiple data sets that you want to capture, you would create a DataVerse. And then you would list all of your data sets under these DataVerses. Your data set can be linked to your co-authors page. If your co-author comes in and they create a DataVerse, they can also have that data set linked to their page. You never want to come into a repository and have two copies of a data set. You always want to have one copy because you're going to get one DOI that data set should be using, and you want to track all of your downloads of your data via one DOI. You know, we have instances where someone has deposited or two authors have deposited one data set twice. They ended up with two different DOIs and two different counts for their downloads. So we were able to go in, merge this information for them, and create one version of their data set. So you deposit one data set, you link it to your co-author. That's in your DataVerse. Of course, you can also just deposit a data set. And if you deposit a data set, it will become part of the Harvard DataVerse root collection. You will also get a URL with your DOI that you can share for direct access to your data set once it has been published. Another important thing about the DataVerse, because we follow publishing guidelines, when you deposit a data set or when you create a DataVerse, once you publish it, that data set is published. The only thing you can do is deaccession that data set. Publishing guidelines don't allow you to publish a data set, have a few people use it, and then decide to go back and unpublish it. People need to constantly access the data that they may have used, And so the publishing guidelines here are that once you publish, it is published for life. You can deaccession, which leaves a tombstone page that this data set used to exist. Here's the DOI, so that if someone has used your data set, they can still get the citation or confirm that the data set did exist. And remember, depending on what you deposit, the type of files that you deposit, someone can cite your data using your DOI. They can cite your data using just the UNF. The UNF is also considered a permanent identifier. So if you can see, here's our other, World Agroforestry is another big DataVerse that also uses collections. So they have a number of different collections or sub-DataVerses that they have created for their main parent website. And of course, I can talk about the Murray Research Archive, which is the archive that I manage, and our collections, and then of course all of our facets. So when you create a DataVerse, you can give access to people to add to your DataVerse, to manage your DataVerse, or to just add data sets. All of that information is found under permissions and groups, okay? If you go under permissions, and I'm not going to expand mostly because I have usernames in here, but under permission it tells me that I've selected that anyone adding to my particular DataVerse needs to be given access. For a journal workflow, you can have the option that anyone with a DataVerse account can add a child to DataVerse. Anyone with a DataVerse account can just add a data set. Anyone with a DataVerse account can add both DataVerses and data sets to your existing DataVerse. Now, this option works in conjunction with another option about the role. Anyone with a DataVerse account can add a data set, for example, would be the selection for a journal. But then you want to make sure that that person is only a contributor. A contributor can only create a data set, add their metadata, upload their files, edit the terms if they need to, set up a guest book. Then they have to submit that data set for review to the journal editor. You definitely don't want to give anybody curator access unless you plan to have them look at every single data set that's ever deposited in your DataVerse and have access to edit those data sets. Very clearly defined roles are here for every DataVerse. It tells you what an admin is. It tells you who the contributor is, what they can do, the curator, the data set creator, the DataVerse and data set creator, file downloader, member. You also can add a role and define what a user can do on your DataVerse. Okay? So going back here, these are the edit options for any given DataVerse that you're in. General information is where you create your DataVerse. So here's my Murray Research Archive. My alias is MRA, belongs to Harvard University. Category right now is going to be research project at some point. Here is our support email for any questions that come in about our DataVerse. As you can see, citation metadata, when we come to the metadata fields, citation metadata is always required. And you can see and view fields and set the fields as hidden, required, or optional for any of the fields. We do have about 5 metadata fields that are required. This is how we set a standard citation in the DataVerse software. There are 5 fields that are required. It's title, it's description, I believe, keywords, and a couple of more. I just can't think of subject over the top of my in my head here. So for the Murray data, because I know that my collection is going to contain geospatial data, I went ahead and selected geospatial data. I also know that I have social science and humanities metadata that I need, so I looked at the fields and I set those. And I also have a block that's very particular for my collection. So this Murray block, although you can't see everything, has information about the ethnicity, the age group, the generation, and a few other fields that I needed in order to tag my collection properly. We create these in-house, and we make them available just to the DataVerse that needs it. So this is more particular, whereas these can be applied to several domains. So when you come in as a user, you're able to either say, okay, I just want to use the fields provided by the general Harvard DataVerse, which is really just citation at this point. Or you can go in and say, well, I need these other fields, astronomy, life science, or journal metadata. So if you're a journal and you come in, you obviously don't want to use just the general DataVerse fields here. You want to select the journal metadata because it offers you information on volume, issue, publication date, type of journal that you can select for your DataVerse. And the other important thing, the facets. Okay, so while you have the template, you have the DDI 2.5 fields that you want to use. It's very important to say, you know, when somebody comes into my data, there are certain words or certain fields that they're going to search in the main Harvard installation that my data should show up for when they search for something. So, for example, I said for the Murray DataVerse, subject is very important. Author is keyword terms, kind of data, unit of analysis, and of course the Murray Research Archive collection metadata block that we created. But you get to select only the search facets from Harvard, or you can use any of the metadata that facets that we have in our entire installation and metadata fields that we've created for particular groups. So as you can see, we have some in Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, which is for a particular DataVerse here. We have the life sciences, health, cell biology. We have Graduate School of Design. We have the journal. We have CGIS. We have the general information on that you would fill out for any template used for your DataVerse. So this is a very important page to start on when you create your DataVerse. And every time you need to make a change, if you create a template here, you select your fields here, and you hit save, and you go back and you start editing a data set, and you feel like you missed something, you come back here, and you select it, and you go back to your data set, and that field will show up. So going back to my DataVerse, themes and widgets, this is where I upload my image for the Murray DataVerse. So I have my beautiful image up here. I can just upload a logo. I can provide tags, and I can put my website link to my to the actual Murray data site where I have embedded a copy of my DataVerse. So somebody can come to the Murray website, and they can click on a data set, and it brings them right back to the Harvard installation where my data set exists. And, of course, I apologize because I really wanted to show you the widgets. So you can embed, and this is going to be updated by the end of June, you can embed the widget directly into your site. This will display a listing of your data sets and your DataVerses as they show up in the Harvard installation. We've talked about permissions. Again, we've talked about groups. This is just a way to organize your permissions page if you have a large number of users. Data set templates. We've talked about creating a template. So when you're creating a template, and I will just show you mine, what you can do for a template is basically pre-fill some information. And you can write notes for your authors who are going to be depositing data. You can specify what you need from them in any particular field. This allows you to have consistent curation across a project, whatever project it is. So, for example, for my page, I had already entered the fact that a description needs to be put in, that an article related publications need to be put in, and then to make sure they delete the text. I had added some logos, and we are not using CC0. We have our own terms of use that we use, and you can also add that to your template so that every time someone deposits a data set, the terms of use is already there. So everyone can be consistent if you have such a project that requires that kind of terms of use. So it'll ask you to create your data set template, and you can come in, give the template a name. Go through the fields. Again, title is required, author is required, contact is required, description is required, and subject is required. Contact is required because when somebody has a question about your data, they're going to contact you, not me. So your contact goes in there, and there's a little email contact button that shows up on your DataVerse and on your data sets. So if somebody creates a data set in your DataVerse, when someone uses that email contact, it goes to the author. If they go on your DataVerse and they use that email contact, it goes to you or whoever created this and put their email in here. We have a number of subjects, and we are constantly expanding as needed. This is also required. Keyword, topic classification, related publications, those are not required. Language fields. So I can look at this and say, okay, as I'm curating my data set, this is great. This is exactly what I need. As I told you, I added additional fields because I have geospatial metadata, I have social science and humanities metadata, and I have the Murray metadata block, which I had mentioned earlier that I had created specifically for my collection because I do have studies with audio and video data. I do have studies that are replication, extensions, and follow-ups. I have studies that fall under politics and government and health and economics. And I have an entire project that I like to tag accordingly. So when you find that your metadata needs are not met, you contact us about what additional metadata fields you need. And if I look at my template here and I'm not happy with it, I go back to where I created my DataVerse and I select additional metadata. I select additional facets. And then I can come back to my template and modify from there. So that is, and of course, when you create your templates, here's where you can save it and add the additional terms that will become a permanent part of your template. So you can have 5 different templates, 5 different names for each of your 5 projects, all having 5 different set of terms. As long as you create it and you make it clear to your user that this is the template you should use when you come onto my DataVerse, they will have the proper template partially filled with lots of information, and they go in and add just the other information that you've required, and your data set curation is done. So if we go back, we've talked about templates. The guest book, which is great. Love my guest books. I have a guest book for one data set, and then I have a general guest book. So if I look at my general guest book, I can create additional guest books for any of my data sets, and I can apply it to one data set, or I can apply it to all the data sets in my DataVerse. So if I were to view collected information here, which I'm not going to do because all of the data in the Murray require an application form, so I have the user's username, and I have their email, and I have some other information that I can't disclose. But if I view collected data, I'm going to get a very nice list of who the user is, where they're from, because that's what I requested. I have a brief proposal. I have information on the file that they downloaded and what they plan to do with it, what their proposal for the project is. And you can have one as well if you create a guest book. Guest books are great when you have a data set that you kind of just want to manage in the background, or when you have a data set with restricted data, but you don't necessarily want to collect too much information in an application form. Because right before they download the data, they just have to fill this out, and you basically get to come in here and just see your collected information. And we already talked about featured DataVerses. These are featured DataVerses. My early Head Start research and evaluation project. It's a big project. It gets lots of use. I curated it as waves of data collection, and all I see when I come into this collection is only the information relevant to this data set. I don't see any of the other 300 data sets that I have in here. And if I go back to my diversity data sets, again, I see only the 101 data sets that are tagged under diversity. And I have information on keywords, kind of data, the different collections. I have topic classification terms. I have the publication date. So I'm able to manage this collection easily. So, because, what I'll do is actually I'll show you how to add a data set really quickly. So I come in here, and like I said, I'm a super user, but I'm going to come in here as a normal user. And for my DataVerse, I just want you to know that nobody has access to add data in here except for me and my library assistant. No user can add data here. We do the curation for this particular DataVerse ourselves. So I'm going to add a new data set. I can go in and we'll just say testing for bioCADDIE. Example, my name is already here. My email is already here. I'm testing, so I'm just in the description. I pick a subject, and this arts and humanity. Humanities, my keyword is going to be testing for training. I don't have any notes, but this is all that's required is the citation metadata. You don't see anything else in here because the point of having a DataVerse is to make it easy at first just to add their data. Someone doesn't have time to come in and add all those metadata fields that are required anyway, but they can come in, actually create a citation, get a DOI, maybe drop their files, and hit save. So I'm not required to drop files right now, but I do have my citation coming, so I can just say, let's save the data set. So here's what I have. Already my DOI. Here's my name, the year I deposited the data, testing for bioCADDIE. It's a draft version. I don't have a version yet. Now, I can decide that I want to publish it just like this. Is it a good idea to publish something without data? Obviously not. Edit it. I can add files. I can add additional metadata. I can add additional terms. I can set my permissions, or I can delete it. Mind you, this is the only time you have opportunity to delete a data set. Once I publish it, like I mentioned, I can't delete it, but I can deaccession it. I can upload my files, and when I'm uploading files, I have several options. I can select my files from a directory. I can drag and drop my files. And I don't want this. I want to get rid of that. But let me just come back in here, please. Where did it go? There we go. So I can drag and drop my files if I need. So if I had an easy file, I would actually show you how this is done. But and I can also get files from my Dropbox. So if there's files in my Dropbox, I can go right to my Dropbox and grab it and ingest the files. You will see the ingest process as it's happening. Tabular files, as I mentioned before, will be going through special ingest, and when it's actually done ingesting, you will see that there's an Explore button and there's a download option that gives you several options to downloading the file. So it's very easy to come in here and just add a data set right away, and then come back and you have a space where you can manage. Under permissions, I can add my collaborators to this data set and give them permission to add files, give them permissions to add metadata. I can give them permission to add terms. And so basically, we can work on this together from any location.
I think Megan comes after her baby group.
Yes, she does.
Excuse me, is there a way you guys could please mute your microphone but the presenter? Thank you.
So it doesn't matter where you are. You can work on one data set or on one DataVerse together with as many of your collaborators as you need. I can give permission to a data set at the a data set at the data set level, which gives them access to this data set from now until eternity, or I can give them permission at the file level. If there were files in this data set, I could say grant access, and I would have a list of files. There are no files. But I could literally just put in their name, my collaborator's name or user's name after they've created an account, and I can select the files that I want to give them access to on an individual basis and on a version basis. Okay, so when you do things by files, you're giving someone access based on the version. When you give permissions by data set, you are giving them access to a data set, and you're giving them access across versions. So it doesn't matter which version they're in, they'll be able to access those files. So as my data set is here, I can publish it. I can download the citation if I needed to. I can edit my files by deleting the files, adding metadata to the files, so a description. I can restrict the files, I can unrestrict the files, and I can add tags. So until I go through all of these different edit options that I have, and my data set looks like it's something that I want to publish, I'm not going to hit this publishing button. Okay? Because if I publish it, I can only deaccession it. I can't do anything else. Here's the email contact that I told you about. If I want to email this data set contact, I can. I cannot see their email. I'll just get a dialog box where I can email them. I can link this data set to my DataVerse. I can link it to somebody else's. If they give me permissions, they can actually go in. Or I can share this data set. And again, if you come back to the page here, you'll see that it tells you, because I'm logged in, you can see that there's draft, end review, and deaccession. Really what you'll see is all of the published. That's what you would see, the published. So if I log out, you see that we have 471 researcher DataVerses, we have 364 projects, we have organizations, institutions, we have journals, we have teaching courses, and laboratory. Here's your publication date, these are the different subjects, and these are the authors. And as you can see, for our particular installation, we are open to the worldwide community, so we support social science data, medicine, environmental sciences, arts and humanities, agriculture, law, engineering, chemistry, physics, and we're just constantly expanding as users and groups come to us and tell us that they need a place to put data. Our services are free around the world. Curation is not depending on the level of curation. We do a lot of outreach, and basically what we provide is if you have data that need a home and you don't want to lose it, and the data are old, it's time to put it up in a preservable, in a place where it's preserved. And we guarantee long-time preservation. It's not going anywhere. It's backed up by Harvard University IT. It's really a chance for you to get your citation and preserve your data, and then open it up to the research community so that it can be used. Any questions?
Okay, so there's no more questions. Well, thank you, Sonia and Eleni, for presenting this month's external webinar.
You are very welcome. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And so next month's webinar will be July 14th. Hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you very much.